It's a great pleasure to welcome you on the second day of our seminar, Saving Our Oceans, the Case for Marine Spatial Planning, which is organized, as you know, by the Embassy of France to Malaysia, by the EU delegation to Malaysia, and by MIMA, which is the Maritime Institute of Malaysia. As you probably all know, we had a very successful first day yesterday as we addressed MSP and its articulation with marine protected areas and its role in the development of blue economy. We are also thrilled about the program of today, as we will be addressing actually the implementation of MSP at local and regional scales and all of the challenges that it encompasses. But before we get into business, I'd say, I would very much like to welcome Ms. Sumati Permal, who is the Senior Fellow and Head of Maritime Security and Diplomacy within the Maritime Institute of Malaysia, who will be addressing us some welcoming remarks. Thank you very much, Sumati. The floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Ms. Valerie. Good afternoon and good morning from wherever you are. It's a pleasure to join the esteemed audience today. Let me just give a formal welcoming remark as slotted for me. I will begin by His Excellency Mr. Roland Garhage, His Excellency Michalis Rokas, Dr. Sabirin Jafar, Director General of Maritime Institute of Malaysia, Mr. Sheikh Hadir Baharum from the Economic Planning Unit, Prime Minister's Department, Malaysia, honorable moderators, speakers, distinguished participants, ladies and gentlemen. The Maritime Institute of Malaysia is actually honored to partner with the Embassy of France in Malaysia and the European Union delegation to Malaysia to organize this seminar and on enhancing the area of ocean governance of the EU strategy for cooperation in the Indo-Pacific. And I think this dialogue is very much timely, as mentioned by Valerie earlier, that you had a very successful day one, and I also hope the day two will be equally or more successful. MIMA has been working with the Embassy of France in Malaysia and the European Union delegation to Malaysia in many other occasions, and we are particularly delighted to address issues on ocean governance at large with the focus of marine spatial planning. Previously, we have collaborated on other seminars like the multilateral and inclusive Indo-Pacific region, European strategy and opportunities for Malaysia and Southeast Asia, and we definitely believe that ocean governance is a new area or an area of importance to both the EU and Malaysia. And we also believe that the discussion between the Malaysian government official, think tanks and research institutions are indeed very useful in policy making. We are able to co-host this seminar, and we hope that the ocean governance is one of the 7 pillars of its Indo-Pacific strategy and being a priority for also not only for France and EU, but also Malaysia. Ladies and gentlemen, Malaysia's oceans and maritime environment are renowned for its biodiversity and is a major source of food, energy and livelihood for many Malaysians. It also provides the foundation for Malaysia's commercial activities, including shipping and maritime transport, tourism, fisheries, marine engineering, biotechnology, and offshore oil and gas. These multifaceted sectors are addressed on a sectoral basis as of now. Marine life and vital coastal habitats are, however, increasingly strained under pressure from pollution, coastal development activities, and also over-exploitation of resources, which is a concern for environmental resilience and sustainability. These factors have contributed to the biodiversity loss and affect the food security in the mid to long term. The warming and acidification of our ocean has had an unequal impact to low-lying coastal areas and islands. Sea level rise, which is one of the key features of the impact posed from climate change, is also a major challenge to countries like Malaysia. Malaysia is committed to having a sustainable ocean by 2030. Malaysia needs to take concrete steps to minimize the adverse impacts of climate change in the next 10 years or so. It is critical to manage the ocean's health and conserve marine and ecosystem sustainability to capitalize the economic potential of our oceans while preserving them for the future generation. Malaysia is bound to gain from the blue economy when it comes to job generation and also projected to contribute significantly to our country's GDP. So it is important that we pursue a coordinated and integrated approach to face the ocean-related issue holistically. A healthy ocean is thus crucial in every aspect of maritime sector. Although studies shows that marine spatial planning is useful tools to manage the use of ocean and maritime domains systematically and sustainable globally. So hence, I believe that this discussion is very important for Malaysia. Marine spatial planning is also recognized as an effective tool for the management of coastal and marine environment. However, research also shows that the findings across the vast ocean are yet to be fully developed. The characteristic of tools may differ across the large ecosystem surrounding Malaysia. Hence, there are gaps, I believe, that Malaysia and EU could address jointly in developing and also enhancing the research on MSP. The lineup of experts from EU and Malaysia and the deliberation in this dialogue is in the right direction. And one key element that to focus is the interaction between human and marine environment. And secondly, the use of social data in determining the effective and sustainable planning. So MIMA as a think tank has a role to play towards this goal. MIMA believes that engaging the EU through dialogue and exchange of ideas, as well as developing action plans towards a healthy ocean is much needed, and timely deliberation, as we are also celebrating World Ocean Day in the month of June. So Malaysia has a considerable stake once again in the ocean. There's a maritime nations need to develop maritime policies and institutional and legal frameworks to developing a comprehensive ocean governance. Implementing sustainable marine spatial planning tools to create and maintain a healthy ocean should be pursued. So I wish to thank the seminar supporters, namely the Embassy of France in Malaysia and the European Union delegation to Malaysia. The Maritime Institute of Malaysia pledges to contribute to these efforts for joint collaboration by moving together the spirit of cooperation on research and ideas to ensure that Malaysia as a maritime nation contribute to continue to play its role for an essential economic environment and also as a social hub serving the local and international community. With that, thank you once again, and back to you, Valerie.
Thank you very much, Ms. Sumati, for this very inspiring, I would say, welcoming remarks. So before we start things, I think we're gonna take a group picture. So I'm gonna ask everyone, please, if you can turn on your cameras now, just for a few seconds. And just like yesterday, I'm gonna ask you for your most beautiful smiles. So turning on some cameras, we're still missing a couple. We really want to have everyone. Okay, time to retouch makeup. No, that's okay. I think we're almost good to go. So I'm gonna say 1, 2, 3, and smile, please. And let's do another one. 1, 2, 3, and smile. I think we should be good to go. Okay, so now let's get things started for real. So we're gonna have the keynote address by Mr. Che Kodir Baharun, and I apologize for my pronunciation if it was really suboptimal. So he is the Director of Environment and Natural Resources Economic Division at the Economic Planning Unit, at the Prime Minister's Department in Malaysia. His portfolio deals with the coordination of implementation of policies and strategies for environmental management and conservation of natural resources to achieve sustainable development. He served at various government positions prior to his current position, including at the federal and state level within related ministries and agencies. Mr. Qadir graduated with a bachelor's in geography and master in environment management from the National University of Malaysia. And he holds a diploma in multilateral environmental management from the University of Eastern Finland. Mr. Che Qadir, thank you very much for being with us today, and the floor is yours.
Thank you, Madam. Excellencies, distinguished delegate, ladies and gentlemen, and a very good afternoon to all of you. First of all, I would like to take this opportunity to thank the organizer for giving me the opportunity to say a few words regarding the progress of the Blue Economy Blueprint for Malaysia in this seminar. It is indeed an honor to be here today amongst the subject matter experts on ocean governance. Ocean and seas cover 2/3 of the Earth's surface. They represent a new economic perspective that holds immense resources for economic growth, employment, and innovation. According to the Organization for Economic Cooperation and Development, or ECD, the ocean contributes about $1.5 trillion annually to the overall world economy, and this may more than double by the year 2030. Offshore oil and gas account for 1/3 of the ocean-based industry's total value, followed by maritime and coastal tourism and maritime equipment and ports. In recent years, the concept of blue economy has gained global traction in ensuring the sustainability of ocean economy. The World Bank defines blue economy as the sustainable use of ocean resources for economic growth, improved livelihoods and jobs, while preserving the health of ocean ecosystem. Meanwhile, the World Economic Summit in 2015 described it as a sustainable ocean economy that emerged when economic activity is in balance with ocean ecosystems, support to remain resilient and healthy. Ladies and gentlemen, geographically, Malaysia comprises of two predominant parts, which is Peninsular Malaysia to the west, as well as Sabah and Sarawak to the east. Malaysia has a coastal line of some 4,800 kilometers and sits on the geological stable Sunda Shelf. This strategic location serves as a meeting point between traders from the East and the West Asia, historically has made Malaysia into a trading hub. Until today, Malaysia remains its position as a trading nation. In addition, coastal and marine-related economy sector has contributed significantly toward national growth. The established economy sectors include coastal and marine tourism, fisheries and aquaculture, port and shipping, and offshore oil and gas. With regard to coastal and marine tourism, the gross value of tourism industries contributed 15.9% to Malaysia GDP in 2019, with domestic tourism contributing ringgit Malaysia 92.6 billion and international tourism contributing ringgit Malaysia 89.4 billion. The gross value of tourism industry and tourist arrival have been following an upward trend since 2015, except for the decrease in 2020 attributed to the COVID-19 pandemic. The ease of travel restriction and opening of borders for vaccinated travelers with no quarantine requirement since April 2022 are among the measures taken by Malaysians to revitalize the tourism sector. The fishery sector has been a major supplier of animal protein to the Malaysian population for decades. In Malaysia, fish contribute around 44% of the entire animal source intake of protein. The total fishery production in Malaysia in 2020 was 1.79 million tons. Malaysia was ranked the 7th largest producer of farm seaweed. Fisheries and aquaculture gross value added in 2017 was ringgit Malaysia 10.6 billion, while the fishery sector's contribution to the national GDP in 2017 was 0.89%. In terms of port and shipping industries, currently Malaysia has a total of 7 major federal ports, such as Port Klang, Johor Port, and Port of Tanjung Pelepas. The port in Sabah and Sarawak are state ports, meaning that they lie under the jurisdiction of the state government of Sabah and Sarawak respectively. More than 90% of the Malaysia's export are conducted through the sea. Malaysia's port have seen growth in the last 2 to 3 decades and have developed international level port capable of handling and trading in commodities. The maritime industry in Malaysia has a contribution of close to 40% of the country's GDP. The offshore oil and gas industry continues to be an important sector for Malaysia, contributing to 20% of annual GDP. Malaysia is among the top 15 countries worldwide, with natural gas reserve and third largest in the Asia-Pacific region. In addition to those established economic sectors, there are many more emerging sectors for Malaysia, namely offshore renewable energy, seabed mining, marine biotechnology and bioprospecting, and waste management. The potential of this sector are still being assessed. Distinguished delegate, ladies and gentlemen, apart from the economy sector, the coastal and marine ecosystem provides abundant ecosystem services to the nation. Malaysia is one of the 17 largest megadiverse country, where 60 to 70% of known species in the world is found in these countries. The marine and coastal environment contain diverse habitats such as mangrove forests, coral reef, seagrass beds, coastal and peat swamp forests, coastal hill ditrocarp forests, and mud flats. Mangrove forests have served as a defense against tsunami back in 2004, where impact was less in the dense coastal mangrove area. However, these natural ecosystems are under pressure from environmental-related crises such as climate change, biodiversity loss, and pollution. This issue could pose threat to the health and integrity of ecosystem and impact communities depends on them directly or indirectly. In addition, it will negatively impact the economic activities in the coastal and marine areas. Therefore, there is an urgent need to strike a balance between economic growth and the conservation of natural ecosystem. Recognizing the need to balance between those objectives, Malaysia has embarked on the development of National Blue Economy Blueprint. Distinguished delegate, ladies and gentlemen, the 12th Malaysia Plan, which was launched on the 27th of September 2021, has outlined the focus for the conservation of coastal and marine areas in Chapter 8, Priority B, managing natural resources efficiently to safeguard natural capital. One of the initiatives in the priority area is developing National Blue Economy Blueprint. This blueprint aims to provide a framework to address issues and challenges on blue economy in order to ensure sustainable coastal and marine-based ecosystem activities. This blueprint will also identify the lead ministry for blue economy activity. Currently, Malaysia is working with the United Nations Development Programme, UNDP, in developing this blueprint. To date, we are in the process of reviewing interim report and yet to be present to the Technical Working Committee for deliberation. The study is expected to be completed by end of this year. A lot more activities related to development of the blueprint will be conducted, such as capacity building, development dashboard monitoring, as well as stakeholder engagement. The concept of blue economy is still in the early stage in Malaysia. We welcome cooperation on capacity building, consultation, dialogue, and network of cooperation on blue economy issues. It is hoped that the blue economy blueprint will be a comprehensive guide to enhance the governance of coastal and marine areas in Malaysia. Ladies and gentlemen, I wish you all a fruitful seminar. And with that, I end my speech today. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much for this very informative address on the development of the National Blue Economy Blueprint here in Malaysia. I am sure all of our audience was very interested in getting all this inspiring information once again. So now it's time to get to our roundtable number 3, so the first one for today, which will address the matter of engaging the community to implement marine spatial planning at a local scale. And for that, we are very, very lucky to have today as a moderator, Michelle Quesada da Silva, that I'm going to try to introduce briefly. So Michelle is an international consultant on marine spatial planning, and she works at IOC UNESCO. She holds a bachelor's degree in biology and a master's degree in oceanography and marine spatial planning. So she was the regional coordinator of the MSP Global Initiative for the Southeast Pacific Pilot Project. And she also was the Latin American representative in the expert group involved in the development of the new MSP Global International Guide. Michelle Quesada da Silva has been working on MSP since 2017 as a consultant, as well as a researcher for different MSP-related initiatives at international, regional, and national levels, especially in stakeholder engagement. She also has experience on developing and implementing analysis to avoid impacts of maritime sectors on marine socio-ecological systems. So this being said, I'm gonna give the floor to Michelle. I think we couldn't have had a better moderator for this session. So Michelle, the floor is yours.
Thanks so much, Valerie, for very kind words, and welcome everyone to our session on engaging the community to implement MSP at a local scale. I would like to thank all the organizers from France, the European Union, and Malaysia for the invitation to moderate this session. I don't want to take much of your time, so let's start our session. And it will be divided in 3 main parts. So first, we will have 2 case studies. After that, we will have short interventions from 2 additional panelists. And then we will go for a dialogue among the 4 speakers and panelists. So our first presentation, our first case study, will be on MSP and local communities awareness. This will be delivered by Ms. Chu Po Lem. She's the Marine Habitat Manager at WWF Malaysia. In her leadership role with WWF, she focuses on strengthening the resilience of marine ecosystems and protecting habitats for human well-being. She holds a master's in tropical marine biology and is currently pursuing her PhD in coral reef management. So Pauline, the floor is yours. You have 10 minutes to deliver your presentation.
Thank you, Michelle. Good morning and good afternoon. I hope you all see my presentation slides. So I'm Pauline from WWF Malaysia. I will be presenting on marine spatial planning, definitely not really focusing on the theoretical side or the practical knowledge side, where I'm only able to present because of the time limit of 10 minutes. I will only present on how local community engage and involve in marine spatial planning. So the study site today that I will share is in Semporna. Semporna is located at the northeastern side of the Monument Island, and then it harbors the highest concentrations of coral reef in Malaysia. So this is one of the locations where we have a lot of beautiful coral reef as well as mega diversities of marine organisms. And it is situated within the coral triangles, the Semporna areas. Hence, this is also why WWF has been working in this area. So for Semporna Marine Spatial Planning, it has been called as the Malaysia First Marine Spatial Plan. It is under the mandate of the Town and Country Planning Ordinance under the structural plan, and it started in 2015, where we launched the Marine Spatial Planning together with the TRPD, the State, Town, and Regional Planning Departments, where they are the lead agency for the planning. And the lead implementer for Semporna Marine Spatial Planning will be the district officer for Semporna. So in 2015, we do the launching for Marine Spatial Planning together. So there's a lot of like the progress where we do zoning plan, action plan, regulations, and until 2020 to be incorporated in the Semporna district plan review. So for this, the plan of Semporna Marine Spatial Planning is to provide an integrated planning approach and ensuring they are coordinated without generating any adverse impact on the environment, which include the economy, social, and marine environment. So before the Semporna Marine Spatial Planning, there's a lot of activities, might be conflicting activities happening in the Semporna area. And this is the zoning plan that we have, focusing on tourism zones and restricted zone, conservation zone, and aquaculture and marine aquaculture zone, based on the feedback from various stakeholders, including the government agencies, as well as the local user. This Semporna Marine Spatial Planning is very particularly special to our, as according to Secretary Ministry speech in 2007, is very special to their department. In June 2016, this MSP was awarded the International Planning Excellence 2016 Award by the Royal Town Planning Institute in London. So I won't be going very deep into stakeholder involvement in marine spatial planning, because today I'm going to talk about focusing on the community involvement. So during the planning of the Semporna Marine Spatial Planning, we also conducted coastal integrity vulnerability assessment to the whole Semporna coastal area. From this vulnerability assessment, we found out that Semporna coastline, there are some of the areas considered very vulnerable, such as the one in red, maybe you cannot see, is at the Mabu Islands and some of the Likitan Islands there. So we started to assess the vulnerability of the conditions. And then the Mabu Islands has been selected to conduct the local early action plan for climate change adaptations. I'm sorry I didn't share very deeply. For Semporna Marine Spatial Planning, we have 7 technical thematic group, and one of it is focusing on climate change. So let me continue with 2017. And education and awareness activities has been conducted with the community to do it together. And we're also working with climate change adaptation local early action plan technical committee has been established in 2018. And the implementation of lead, including Environmental Protection Department, University Malaysia Sabah, and also WWF. So all these community workshops has been conducted to record the impact of the climate change from the past, the current, and future, and identify the vulnerability of resources and potential action plan. These community consultations on climate change adaptation and local early action plan has been conducted and already presented to Marine Spatial Planning Committee, led by District Officer for recognition and implementation. So now I go to the community participations and implementation for marine spatial planning. So this is the pictures that we conduct the activity in Mabu Islands, where the community draw up what is their island look like, and where is the resources that they can find in different areas, what are the zones that they have, and what are the concerns that they have for their own island. So they observe, we together work with the community, we observe their climate change impact observed in Mabu Island. So this is some of the photos that we taken during the field trips, and also we have seen together with the community. And at the same time, they also discovered that the Mabu Islands has been developed very fast, and a lot of community is living there, as well as some of the signs of coral bleachings indicating the increase in terms of sea water temperatures. And then the fishery resources is no longer as used to be before. And also if there are like typhoon or hurricanes come on to the island, then they would cause damage in terms of their house, especially where the roof might be far away. So these are a few climate change impact that observed together with the community in Mabu Island. And what is it local early action plan for the climate change adaptation? So we are using the guideline from Coral Triangle Initiative that we're getting organized for climate change adaptation planning. Let the community to tell what is the climate stories, conducting the vulnerable assessments together with the community, and developing the plan together with the community. So this is our activities when we start to engage community. Way before we started any activities, we definitely need to share with the community what is climate change, a series of activity to see what are the impact caused by climate change, and to share how is it going to impact them in real life. And then the community start to have sharing what is the climate change story, telling from the community, start to aware how is the cycle, which year happened, what major event that has happened in the island, and some of the what are the losses and what are the resources they need for. So this is some of the activity we conducted with women, with youth, with kids, and with the fishermen at Mabu Island. So kind of like already the participatory community mapping, where the community involved in mapping, where is the resources that they have now, what is the changing in terms of their resources through time. So in the past, is it location, it is for what fishery resources, is it for fish, or is it for other fishery resources, and how is it happening now, and what are the future things that they really think, what are the resources that very important for them for their livelihood. And we conduct the vulnerability assessment together with the community in Mabu Island. So we get the community groups, different community groups, for example, the ladies and the youth, as well as the elderly, to talk about what are the resources that they think that will be vulnerable due to the impact of climate change, and what are the things that they can do to improve in terms of the adaptation plan. For example, we also shared it to other community and also to Wildlife Department and also to relevant government agency to develop and finalize the adaptation together. So this is the adaptation plan review and socialization. So this is happened during the MCO, during the pandemic strike. So we conducted the activity through Zoom as well as face-to-face activity that we review back what is the adaptation plan for the climate change. And we socialize it to the district officers and also the relevant government agencies that we involve here. And then what is the outcome that we really can see is the community, the youth in Mabu Islands take lead and also started the initiative of one to protect their own coral reef, one to monitor what is their seagrass condition in the island, want to take concern and feel like the ownership of the marine resources that belong to them. So they are working with Green Sempurna as well as with Reef Shack Malaysia to apply fund from SGP to protect their own marine resources. In this case, they are doing coral restoration work and then monitor the seagrass distributions in the island. We also kind of like come up with a discussion and work plan together with the youth, including the male and also female youth inside the Mabu Island, conducting the survey on how is the uses of the water resources in the island itself. So this is led by the community climate leader or ICLIM leaders that they call themselves as ICLIM leader under the project ICLIM, and they conduct various activities to increase the resilience of them to the impact of climate change. I think that's all from my side, and then maybe that's all. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Pauline. You really respect the time, and I appreciate that. I didn't have to interrupt you. Yeah, I'm very happy with our presentation because we can really see in a concrete way how MSP and climate change action can be connected. I thank you so much for giving this example for us. We'll talk more about that in the dialogue with all the other speakers and panelists. So now I would like to invite Professor Brice Troyer to present his case study on what participation means in MSP systems, lessons from the French case. So Professor Brice, he's a geographer whose research focuses on ocean geography, more specifically on the relations between human groups and maritime space. He studies how power relations and knowledge issues intertwine with geotechnologies such as maps, data portals, and he's also the director of a research laboratory of the French National Center for Scientific Research. Welcome, Brice, you have 10 minutes.
Thank you, Michelle. So I'm very pleased to be part of this session today, and I would like to thank the organizers for the invitation. I'm Brice Troyer, a geographer, full professor at Nantes University, France. And as Michelle said, I develop research on marine planning, mainly through the case of fisheries, with a special attention to geographical information issues and power relations. For our discussion today, I would like to bring my 2 cents in 10 minutes on the critical issue of participation in marine planning. To do this, I will try to sum up some outcomes based on the French recent experience. This is based on the research published in the journal Planning Practice and Research in early 2022, and my colleague Laurie Tissière co-authored it. So, participation in marine planning is intended to respond to a range of objectives, including improving understanding of the marine environment, resolving conflicts over use, incorporating a social dimension into marine planning, and strengthening the acceptability of decisions in the eyes of users and communities. Since 2014, in the EU, there is a directive on maritime spatial planning. And in this directive, participation is poorly defined. Article 9 stipulates that member states must put mechanism in place for public participation at an early stage. And Article 6.2 says that member states shall ensure the involvement of stakeholders without any further clarification. Consequently, there is a diversity of forms taken by participation in MSP throughout Europe and of objectives as well, as you can see on the right. The application of the MSP directive in France is twofold. Overall objective set within a national strategy for the sea and the coastal zones, published in 2017, and a declination at a subnational level in 4 strategic documents called DSF, with a subdivision into vocation zones, defining main orientations and priorities. The strategic part has been published in 2019, while the operational part has just been published, with delay in view of the deadline set by the directive, but overruled by COVID. As you may have seen from a previous figure, France conducted 2 types of participation, which makes it rather special case on a European scale. Firstly, a discussion and a joint work with stakeholders within commissions, one for each of the 4 MSP units, namely CMF, or Subnational Maritime Council. Secondly, a consultation of the wider public conducted through local workshops and an online platform. Here, in this study, we mainly focus on the analysis of the joint work with stakeholders. In another paper, we also analyzed the wider public consultation by using a textual analysis to study its about 4,300 contributions, but I cannot develop this further in a few minutes. I won't develop the method section here, mixing interviews and document analysis, but just tell a few words about the analytical framework. We have established that participation issues can involve 4 types of factor. Structural ones, sorry for that. Structural ones related to the negotiation process deployed to build consensus and the power stakeholders have from identification of maritime problem through the setting out new planning measures. Contextual issue, secondly, since any participation process is situated in time and space and intertwined with various events and hazards. Third, organizational issues, that is to say, the networks formed by these arenas, the interrelation which unite them, and the way and capacity in which stakeholders take part in these arenas. And finally, methodological issues, in short, the participation methods and the means to collect, process, and convey information that could help to clarify, foster, and consolidate discussion. Now, regarding the results, what does it look like in France? The interviews highlighted 3 key structural issues. First, planning doctrine. In a maritime context, participation has gained ground through the main marine environmental protection programs, undoubtedly to the point of giving MSP an environmental prism. Multi-college dialogue enhances the bilateral negotiation and state arbitration model, but not replace it. In this model, consensus is conceived as having to be the outcome of repeated discussion with maritime stakeholders. Now, about the very essence of marine planning, concepts are poorly defined, questions nor debated collectively in the participatory process analyzed in the French case. The French MSP system is more aligned with the soft sustainability logic as observed in Europe more generally. Concerning the different types of participation, fishers, representatives, and stakeholders in the marine renewable energy are important actors in the French MSP debates. In comparison, local authorities appear to be distanced from consultation. Regarding the contextual issues, the study shows that 4 contextual factors influence participation. Geographical subdivisions, like stakeholders were not consulted about how the maritime space was divided into the 4 MSP units. Acclimatization of new stakeholders, because participation in the context of maritime planning is different from land-based participation in 3 main ways that are complex to consider for them. First, the spatial scale is more extensive. Second, the web of stakeholders involved is more complex. And third and lastly, the sea and the coastal zone must be considered together. Also, the specificities of local arrangement, because participation has taken highly variable forms depending on the MSP units. This variability reflects localized structure and dynamics on specific local arrangements, but also poses problems with positioning for national stakeholders, particularly energy companies. And hazards, because participation has been disrupted by several classical events, such as changes in government, the emergence of new demands from participants, and international uncertainties like the Brexit in this case. Now, regarding the organizational factors. The participation process was also influenced by several interconnected organizational factors. Firstly, the way in which various operational scale and formats fitted together. It has not always been easy to properly articulate the 2 main levels of action and participation involved. Second, the existence of consultation arenas with links in some form to the MSP process, it was not often easy for the actor to understand the intertwined relationships between the planning processes led by the local authorities and MSP. And especially since maritime stakeholders build knowledge sharing networks which have reciprocal implication in MSP. And lastly, the level and type of involvement participants had with the participation process. There are significant disparities in the level of participation representatives have, and these different forms of eligibility for taking part in the consultation process result in participants being assigned one of the two types of role, a technical role for professionalized participants or a political one for elected representatives and stakeholders. Participation in MSP in France, thank you, was also examined in relation to two methodological issues, mid-process methodological change and technical choices, which were not discussed. Firstly, regarding mid-process methodological changes, trials and errors were likely to cause both political and methodological issues, such as concern from actors within the CMF about the public possibly questioning their work, and doubts about the relevance of public debate in the proposed format in any case. And secondly, regarding technical choices, which were not discussed, for instance, the use of highly descriptive and not very analytical indicators and methods, and little attention given to data held by stakeholders in favor of official data, and the unexposed choice of a very spatial planning with an important prescriptive dimension. So these are just some of the conclusions that now deserve to be debated, and I hope that this contributes to a more general discussion on the question of participation and its issues in MSP. Thank you for your attention, and here are some of my recent publications related to MSP. Do not hesitate to contact me if you would like to share me to share some. So thanks again.
Thank you so much, Brice. Another very interesting case study and very concrete. Sometimes when we think about monitoring, evaluating MSP, we think only about the plan, if the plan is achieving, but we always say at IOC that we need to also monitor and evaluate the process itself, and stakeholder engagement. It's one of the key issues. Thank you so much. We will go back to it in our part of the dialogue. So now I'd like to invite our panelists who will give some short interventions about the topic. So the first one will be Nicolas Boyer. He's a lecturer in public law at Université de Bretagne Occidentale and a member of the Joint Research Unit AMURI, being the co-leader of the research on development and sustainability of maritime and coastal activities. His research fields are environmental law, energy law, and coastal and marine policies. Nicolas, you have up to 5 minutes for your initial intervention.
Thank you very much, Michelle. Ladies and gentlemen, I thank you very much, our organizer, to invite an AMUR researcher in this event with Malaysia. Before saying a few words about maritime spatial participation, it is useful to recall that in France, it is essentially the state that has powers at sea. This is the case for the management of the public maritime domain, navigation, fisheries, aquaculture, etc. Local and regional authorities have a very limited role at sea, but important planning powers on land. In French law, there are two levels of MSP. At the upper level, which Brice has already perfectly explained, we have the sea basin facade in French, and the sea basin strategy documents are the responsibility of the state. One of their aims is to implement the European Maritime Spatial Planning Directive. And at local level, MSP instruments are mainly the responsibility of local authorities. Today, as sea basin strategy documents are carried out, public policies try to develop the planning of coastal areas within the framework of urban planning documents. However, maritime spatial planning also exists within the framework of environmental planning like PMA. About participation, planning documents are drawn up in consultation at the beginning of the process. This includes public debate or prior consultation under the control of an independent authority. Then, in a second phase, other participation procedures concern the documents ready to be adopted. These are the public inquiry or electronic public consultation, two kind of procedures. Just few remarks can be made. First, about our topic. First, to answer the question posed by this session, there is perhaps a difficulty of vocabulary or concept. In the French case, the difficulty is to know what the term community means. More specifically, at the level of the sea basin, it's not easy to identify a community, but there are representative bodies, such as the Sea Basin Council. Whereas, at local level, for documents under the responsibility of local authorities, the public concerned by participation is the inhabitants of the municipalities. So participation at the local level is perhaps simpler and more direct because of the proximity of the actors to the local authorities. Second, participation procedures are generally aimed at the public in French law. This means all people in general, citizens or inhabitants. And third, remarks, in general, in French law, French law contains many formal participation procedures. However, in practice, the effectiveness is rather low. On the other hand, these procedures are the source of a lot of legal disputes. Thank you for this first question. I have finished, Michelle.
Thank you so much, Nicolas. So now we'll go for our second intervention. So this is to show that you were on time. And so the next panelist is Professor Dr. Aileen Tan Shao Huai. She's the director of the Center for Marine and Coastal Studies at the University Sains, Malaysia, and the executive director of the Asia-Pacific University Community Engagement Network. She's also the vice chair of IOC UNESCO Subcommission for the Western Pacific, and her field of expertise is mariculture and conservation of mollusks, promoting green aquaculture to create an impactful, sustainable income for the local communities, as well as protecting the environment. You have the floor, Professor Aileen. You have up to 5 minutes for your first intervention.
Thank you, Michelle. A very good day to everyone. Like other coastal zone managements adopted in Southeast Asia, marine spatial planning requires participation and awareness of the local community to ensure sustainable development targets are achieved. MSP, I would prefer to mention it as MSP, marine spatial planning, in one way or another, has been inbuilt into traditional practices and local knowledge. Current practices of MSP with new innovations can be built onto this foundation, which makes them more acceptable to the locals. If something new is to be introduced, it should be in a familiar and recognizable structure. Inputs from the local communities are valuable. The integration of local community knowledge into MSP is crucial and critical. Local knowledge is trusted by the communities and it will have proven adaptable to local conditions. Our experience in Malaysia indicates that MSP can be successful when communities are sensitized to the process early on in the program and they are made aware of the benefits of the program. Ownership is important to the community. And if the MSP are inclusive of the local community, the chance of success is higher. It is important to involve the local communities or so-called the grassroots communities in the decision-making process to achieve sustainable resources management. Often local communities do not specifically recognize the process of MSP per se, such as MSP in relation to fisheries, aquaculture, or marine renewable energy. But they are more familiar with issues related to the project and to themselves, be it their business or livelihood, and how these are implemented on the ground. Where are they allowed to fish? What gear are allowed to be used at certain locations are examples of where MSP are applied. Local communities usually initiate bottom-up approach regarding local coastal issues and address real issues that are often easy to solve because they respond, the community respond to a localized problem. We must also, before I end, we must also remember that what is obvious on paper, such as policy paper, regulations, need not be so on the ground. And this deficit has to be addressed for the success of any marine spatial planning application. Thank you. Back to you, Michelle.
Thanks so much, Eileen. So now I would like to invite the four of you to turn on your camera so we can have our next session about the discussion among all of us. I have a few questions that any of you who wants to answer, just raise your hand and then I give you the floor. So the first one, in a more general, broad sense, from the experiences that you have in your respective countries, how do you think that MSP is shaping local community dynamics and how the local communities are really able to influence the MSP process? Who would like to start? Please, Eileen.
Okay, thank you, Michelle. Well, in Malaysia, MSP are done and enforced by policymakers and managers. Oftentimes, the success of the MSP will take time before they are being accepted. Well, in Malaysia, for example, there was a strong opposition to the no-take zones enforced in marine parks. But over time, with more outreach and more awareness program being conducted, and also over time where the fisheries has been improved, the communities are now comes in together and strongly support the MSP implementation for those areas. Yeah, it takes time, but it needs time to convince the local partner, local stakeholders, and even the community to get the buy-in. Yeah, thank you, Michelle.
Thank you so much. Any other? Please, Brice.
Yeah, I would just add something. I think that we always keep in mind that the MSP process is mostly political rather than a technical one. So all deals with question of power at every stage of the process. So I think that the question of who is invited to debate, who lead the process, what kind of data we use, who is deciding at the end, how whole is fitted. This is whole political questions. So the question is, how we could find a balance between national authorities, like in France, because the national authorities is leading the process, and the way the people, the communities, the local collectivities could act in the process. It is just a question of balance and power in that relation. So difficult. Yeah.
Yes, and any suggestions, Reese, about how we could manage and balance this different level of powers? I know it's a very tricky question, but if you have any ideas to share with us or examples about how the methods of engagement could be more inclusive, thinking specifically about the local stakeholders.
Yeah, I think that, to be honest, the national authorities in France did the best, okay? But they try to invent something very new in a whole context, because we have an heritage in terms of planning and so on. So we have to compose with this. Just to answer your question, I think that in marine spatial planning, the word spatial is very important. The word spatial is very important because it all deals with spatial data. And maybe if you look at what happens in different scientific communities, such as the mapping communities, there is a lot of reflection about contour mapping, data activism, and participatory mapping. We had one of the example earlier. So I think that maybe this is one way to involve much better the local communities in the decision process and in the construction of the problem, in fact.
Thank you, Brice. I agree that the word spatial is the one that really makes the difference, because I think MSP really put the data on the core of the discussion, and it's not easy many times to deal with that.
Just a detail on that, in the French version of the European Directive on MSP, it is not a question about spatial planning. In the French version, it is a question of the planning of the maritime space. And this is the case in some other Mediterranean countries, such as Spain, Italy, and so on. So this is very interesting.
Yeah, sometimes the translation makes some tricky things. And I would like to take advantage of your comments to ask Pauline about the participatory mapping experience that she shared with us. How was the perception, like the initial reaction of these local actors when you proposed this participatory mapping? Because we know that sometimes it's very difficult for the actors to say exactly what are the areas that they use. Could you please tell us a bit more about this experience?
Yep, thanks, Michelle. For us as a WWF, we have been there for more than almost 20 years now. That when it took a long time for us to decide to go to marine spatial planning. So way before that, almost more than around 8 or 7 years before that, we actually started the marine spatial planning processes. We conduct various of education and awareness activities to empower the community to understand what is the marine environmental issues that they are facing now. For example, what is coral? It might be starting from scratch. We are actually talking at the point that community thinks that the coral is a rock. So we take almost 8 years to empower them. What is a coral? What is the fish is highly dependent on the coral reef, and then the seagrass resources, and what are the impact that they can see? What is a climate change? All this education awareness have to be done way ahead before we actually started the process of marine spatial planning in 2015. So in 2015, we finally come to a point that we managed to collect various informations of where is the seagrass bed, where is the coral reef, where is the community, what are the resources, and what are the spatial use by the community. by the community, by government agency, what are the locations that they propose for aquaculture, mariculture, what are the locations that has been always used by boat and transporting, what are the spaces. So in 2015, there's this time that we collect various all different type of maps together. And then under the Sabah Structural Plan 2033, that Semporna has been classified as a tourism hub. So the directions of this marine spatial planning is moving towards the common visions of let the Semporna area to be a tourism hub for a touristic area. So this is also one of the reasons that why a lot of, definitely because of the very beautiful coral reef that we have in Semporna, and also the community and also get to empower to say, wow, they are so proud to have an area of such a beautiful coral reef that they have. So they want to protect their own area for the tourism industry. So I hope I answer your question. So the involvement of community is have to be start when they are young, and then slowly they get to participate, and they're willing, they are empowered to talk and speak up their mind, especially during the climate change, the youth climate change forum, international forums, that they kind of like already empowered by other youth from other area on, they act on the impact of climate change. So during that time, the youth is very excited and want to improve their environmental condition in their own island. So that's also some of the kind of like some of the triggers that triggers the youth to be much more empowered, at the same time that want to take ownership of their own area.
Thank you so much, Pauline. I totally agree that we need to take advantage of the energy of the youth too, and the enthusiasm. Please, Professor Eileen, you want to
thank you, Michelle. I echo what Pauline has mentioned. You know, we have to engage the community at the very beginning of the planning of the management plan, because they are the local stakeholders, and they must be made aware of the benefits, you know, for them if they were to come in and support. And of course, again, ownership is important to the community. If you can make it more inclusive for them, they are more keen to be part of it, and especially if it's impacting their livelihood. Then they would want to know more, and they want to contribute. And if like based on one of the questions been asked, how do we engage them? Get them involved, let them sit in the committee, let them be part of the decision-making committee. That's how we started off our program with the community. Get them involved, make them have the ownership, and give them the authority to have a voice in the platform. Yeah, thank you. Back to you, Michelle.
Thank you. Yeah, if we have committees and working groups, we really need to have all the stakeholders and all the administrative levels too, if we really want to have MSP integrating transboundary, national, and the local scale. I would like now to make a question to Nicola. From your experience, I know that your field of expertise is more connected with the legislation. So what's the perception that stakeholders, local communities, what's the perception do you think they have in relation to MSP, to the related legislation, regulation, and also to these emerging, for example, maritime sectors that are changing the seascape? Could you comment about this perception of the stakeholders about MSP?
Yes. Maybe the perception of community is not really clear. I think people is more involved in the process by their representative bodies, professional bodies, for example. Back to you.
Thank you so much, Nicola. We have some questions from the audience as well, so I want to give them the opportunity. I saw that one was already answered, so I'll go to the other one. So it's to Pauline. So what convinced the Sabah state and Semporna district to adopt MSP? It sounds like the entire process focused on community, which is great, but did the government get involved in or influence decision making? Could you please tell us a bit more about that?
Yes, maybe I didn't make it very clear during the presentation just now. Actually, for Semporna Marine Spatial Planning is led by the state agency. In this case, the Regional Town and Planning Department is under their leadership, because when they are doing the Sabah Structural Plan 2033, and they discovered that area in Semporna is suitable to be a tourism hub, so it will be increase the revenue in terms of the tourism entry. And then we are actually facilitating the state governments as well as the Semporna district officer at that time is also very look forward for this planning to be happen, to ensure that proper planning to be in place systematically, so that they can develop the plan together with the various government agency as well as the community to go for a common goal for the Semporna Tourism Hub goal. So the whole process is actually got two elements of it. So there's one element of just focusing on community, and there's another route that go for the government agency that I didn't present it here, but I presented in others webinar before that fully focusing on the flow for the government seat level. So I just go for a very brief that we have a technical working group, we have kind of like stakeholder working group, and if we go through almost like almost 15 committee, Marine Spatial Planning Committee meetings to go through all this planning process, which include like just to present what are the map that we have so far, and what is the resource use, what are the potential conflict zone, what are the proposed maps. So we presented the first Marine Spatial Planning zoning map, and then it's got come back and then receive a lot of feedback from the stakeholder, from Sabah Parks, from Fisheries Department. Then we kind of like incorporate like the feedback from ESCOM, where is the security zone, where are the zone that's suitable for tourism. So these are the process that we go through. It might not be presented in this presentation because this is like, I only have 10 minutes and to talk about the local involvement. So if you want to know more, please feel free to send me an email, and also maybe you can also read maybe previous publications that have been raised what is the Marine Spatial Plan. So far, the Marine Spatial Plan reports has been printed, I think 2018 or 2019. So this is now we are already in the implementation phase, where the implementing has been led by different agencies. And if they need any help, like for example, capacity building or training, so they will get help from WWF Malaysia. So our role as the WWF Malaysia, we are capacity build whoever who need help in terms of doing the implementations, as well as what are the things that they need help from, for example, the technical advisor, and also the zoning, as well as we provide much more on technical advising. So, and then when they lead the activity and also implementation at the ground, then they will get funding from other sources as well. For example, recently the CAPCAS, one of the state agency, is actually funding the coral restoration work of these Mabu Iklim leaders. So they are funding this to do coral restoration, and maybe the youth doesn't know how to do it properly, so they get advice from WWF, they get advice from Reef Shack Malaysia, or they get advice from Green Semporna, so that we are helping them to have their own coral restoration work in place. I hope I answer you.
Thank you. So let's go probably to the last question. I will ask this question for first to Nicolas. So it's a very important one that it's here on the chat. From your experience, how do you avoid stakeholder fatigue? How do you keep the communities and stakeholders engaged so they are able to monitor the progress and the acceptance to policy change? So basically, how do we keep them interested and engaged in the whole MSP process, and how to do that without avoiding fatigue?
It's a difficult question. as we have, as I have said, there is a lot of procedures to adopt documents, and public is involved a lot of time, and maybe is a little disappointing for people who participate in the consultation. And I have no I have no solution for the fatigue. I have no idea for that. Sorry. Maybe Brice.
Brice, if you want to complement very shortly, please.
Yeah, I think that maritime stakeholders are already tired of not being heard. So this is another kind of fatigue as well. No, it's very difficult because there is not only maritime spatial planning. There is a lot of processes that embedded the maritime stakeholders, such as maritime protected areas or terrestrial planning and so on. So I think that we could just address this question globally, but this make it a real big challenge, in fact. Yeah.
Yeah, so maybe try to have some activities, not only for MSP, but for other related issues that you need consultation at the same time. Because indeed, at least from my experience, when we engage stakeholders, they usually talk about other things, not only MSP. So maybe we should be more effective and try to deal with that in a more integrated way, bringing together different initiatives and marine issues. Unfortunately, we don't have time anymore, but we have many questions on the chat and on the Q&A box. So I'd like to invite the 4 speakers and panelists to answer the questions. There is one very interesting there about how to involve the communities that do not live on the coast, how to make them aware about what's going on there, because in the end, everything that's happening in the ocean affects us. So thank you so much for the participation in this. Yes, please.
You can still have a few minutes. So
oh, great.
fascinating, so keep going. We'll let you know.
Great. So we have, they just gave us more time. So I'm really happy with that. So let's go to this question that I mentioned. Any of you who wants to answer, it's from Juan Honko from the European Commission. So how to involve communities that do not live on the coast, but have a stake in what happens in the sea area under the jurisdiction in the country where they live. Brice, please.
Yeah, just to begin the answer with this very interesting question. And related to another publication I just mentioned very quickly, very briefly at the very beginning of my presentation earlier, we studied all the contribution of the wider public in the French MSP process, more than 4,300 I mentioned. And one of the main results of that is the fact that the wider public is not the wider public. A lot of contribution has been done by maritime regular stakeholders. We can see that very clearly through the kind of disembodied vocabulary used and the very technical and specific question raised in this consultation. So I think this is something very, very important. To date, we don't have any solution for that because an online platform to receive the contribution could be very useful for such a kind of contribution, but it depends on who uses it, in fact.
Indeed, and also because the stakeholders involved, they really know the deadline when the consultation is going on. So if they know before the wider public. So it's something to consider, to not have the wider public only in this consultation phase, but also before. Anyone else would like to answer this question about how to involve the communities that do not live on the coast? If not, we can go to the next question. So it's on the chat. It's from Dr. Sharifa Murad. It's for Pauline and Nicola. And I think from the question, maybe also for you, Brice, and even I think Dr. Ailing can also have a say about that. So do the local communities get technology access and technical training for, here you have specific things about diving, course identifications and surveys and data and map analysis, but let's be generic in relation to training the local communities to participate in the MSP process, thinking not only about developing the plan, but Pauline also mentioned their involvement in the monitoring. So maybe you can start, Pauline, and then the others can just raise their hand and I give you the floor after Pauline.
Yes, thank you, Dr. Sharifa. And yes, we will facilitate the training based on their requests. For example, their requests for open water, scuba diving certifications. That's all we facilitated. And then they are also looking for coral restoration training that we also provide them some technical and advice and support as well, and as well as coral identifications training. So we will base on their requests, and then we will facilitate whatever technology and also learning training experience that they need. I hope I answered your questions. Thank you.
Anyone else would like to talk about training the stakeholders? Brice, please.
Yeah, just a very quick comment in addition. I think that the question of education is central. This is quite classical in many questions, but in this one it is particularly critical. And I think that we could add to the education issue the question of empowerment, because the education may be interesting if the people and the communities and the actors who are involved in marine planning understand what happened, but are able as well to take a kind of lead on some actions in the process. So I think that education and empowerment should be very linked.
So not only saying your opinion, but having a role in the process. Anyone else would like to answer this question?
Yes, just a remark. In France, science participation experiences exist in some environment tool like a natural park, but I think in MSP process there is not so much these experiences with people. So indirectly that exists, but not in fact in the big MSP process.
So more specific and small initiatives, I imagine. So there's another question. This one is on the Q&A box. It's from Rabia. Stakeholder participation means conflicts of interest. In the cases you are familiar with, how do you deal with this issue of conflict of interest? How do you manage the different conflicts? Because we always say that MSP is a process where we could minimize the conflicts, but leading with conflicts are very challenge. So anyone would like to address? Dr. Aileen? Yes.
Yeah, thank you, Michelle. I just want to share from our experience when we tried to convert in Penang an issue, you know. So what we usually do is we will have small group stakeholder consultation first. For example, we will have stakeholder consultation with the Penang Port Authority, and then we have another separate stakeholder consultation with the fisheries group. By having separate stakeholder consultation, we can actually discuss and focus more on specific issues pertaining specifically for that particular group of stakeholders. Once we solve that, we can bring everybody together and agree on a bigger platform. It's much easier compared to we start off with having everybody together and having stakeholder consultation together. Then you have all different questions, different conflicts, and it's difficult to handle at that time. So if we will have done it separately, individually, before bringing them together, it will be much easier. Yeah, that is from our experience. Yeah, thank you. Back to you, Michelle.
Thank you, Professor Eileen. Yes, sometimes it's better to first have this kind of capacity building and initial talks separated before we have this bringing the different interests together. And I think now we are about to close. So I would like to ask each of you just to have your closing remarks about this topic. So let's start with the order of the presentations. So first, Pauline, please, your last words about it.
I would like to use this platform to thank you everyone, because I am much more like a marine spatial planning practitioner, not really go for the technical or theory side of the story. So I really appreciate this platform that enabled me to learn more, definitely from all the presenter as well as the speaker, to give me a different perspective of how I can see marine spatial planning. And we really hope that there are more study cases can be happen in Malaysia, so that we can do a cross-learning, site visit, etc., so that we can get more feeling of how marine spatial planning can be benefit to all the community that living within the marine space. Thank you.
Thank you so much for bringing your experience as well. Please, your turn.
Yeah, very quickly. Thank you, Michelle. I think that obviously participation issues are critical, are crucial in marine spatial planning, and engaging communities, maritime stakeholders, and peoples is so essential if you consider that the main outcomes of marine spatial planning is not the plan, but the process.
Definitely. So now, Nicolas, please, your last words, your key message.
Yes. French model is difficult to explain in some words. And what is important for me today, it's to hearing Malaysia experience, and I'm really glad for that. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Nicolas. Professor Eileen.
Thank you, Michelle. I would like to mention that most of us here now is either we are from the government agencies or we are from the academic institution. So I always remind myself that we should learn how to listen to issues and concerns of the community when we want to implement any policies or regulations towards the local community, because that is important, listening to them and hearing them out, and that will help us to address the real issues when we want to implement any MSP in any area. Yeah, thank you. Back to you, Michelle. Thank you very much.
Thanks so much for all of you for your thoughts, your ideas about how the stakeholder engagement is happening at local scale, and as well how it could be improved. With that, I close this session and I give back the floor to Valerie.
Thank you very much, Michelle, and thank you very much to all the panelists and speakers. It was really a fascinating roundtable, and you were perfectly on time, so it's like you will get a medal for that, I'm sure. So right now, thank you very much also to all of our audience, and please stay with us because we're going to have one last roundtable on the implementation of MSP at a regional scale and the challenges of transboundary implementation of MSP. But for now, we're going to take a break. And so just like yesterday, we will be showing you a short video, which is called Ocean Treasures, Preservation of the Sea, which is part of a series of documentaries produced by the EU delegation to Malaysia to raise awareness on ocean and ocean preservation. So stay with us. The video is 9 minutes long, so I will see you back in 9 minutes. Have a nice break, and thank you again.
The ocean, the heart of our planet. It covers 2/3 of the Earth's surface, generates 70% of the oxygen we breathe, and is home to 94% of all life. Hundreds of thousands of incredible marine species live and flourish in its waters. And for all the species in the world, it's a source of life.
Ocean is very important because it covers 70% of the Earth's surface. And ocean also regulates our climate and weather patterns. It kind of reset the state or the conditions of our Earth climate, and also it absorbs more than 50 times of carbon dioxide from the atmosphere, and also provide economic benefits to the people, important for global trade in terms of the marine transportation or shipping industry. Ocean also produce food, like seafood, for example. From the ocean, we can also get medicines that can cure Alzheimer's, heart diseases, and overcome cancer amongst the people. So that are the benefits of the oceans.
Warning about climate change is reaching Malaysian shores.
A southwardly moving oil slick may pose a danger to marine life along coastal areas near Perak.
A dead turtle was found in Pulau Tioman covered in oil believed to be residue from the collision between a US warship and a merchant vessel in the waters of Johor.
Right now, we are facing a crisis. Yes, a crisis. Every moment of every day, our ocean is being ravaged. Natural habitats are contaminated and ecosystems debilitated, causing thousands of species to disappear before our very eyes. We plunder and pollute the ocean for our excessive needs and wants. We drag tons of life out of the waters for our consumption. We throw tons of garbage and waste for our convenience. We destroy the environment that sustains life for trillions of amazing sea creatures and for ourselves. Mass extinction of sea life devastates entire food chains. Pollution poisons the waters and creatures with toxins and microplastics that enter our bodies when we consume sea products. We depend on the ocean far more than we realize. Changes in the ocean cause chains of effect on land environments too, on our cities, on our homes. Rising temperatures cause rising sea levels and other unprecedented weather catastrophes like devastating floods, thunderstorms, and hurricanes. We would lose our sustenance, impacting our homes and destroying our planet. Fortunately, we've already begun the efforts to undo the damage.
The European Union and Malaysia have a long history of working together for the well-being of people and the protection of the environment we all live in. Our partnership in preserving our oceans is a fundamental pillar of this cooperation. It is paramount, therefore, that the European Union and Malaysia work strategically to create a more sustainable way of looking after the oceans and marine habitats conservation by embarking on initiatives that will benefit both all of humanity and Mother Nature.
The United Nations Convention on the Law of the Sea creates and enforces laws that help regulate human activities that affect ocean environments, with the EU's dispute settlement mechanism supporting their efficacy in moderating the most harmful practices like overfishing and pollution. National ocean parks are being developed in many countries to protect marine areas from human interference. The EU, ASEAN, and other countries are all working together to implement conservation and ocean management measures, while NGOs work with local communities to adopt better fishing and general ocean practices. International cooperation is crucial in leading us towards a more sustainable future. Partnerships across borders are essential towards a restored ocean. It's up to us to work together through campaigns like the EU's Indo-Pacific strategy to address the problem fundamentally and holistically. This campaign employs 7 points of focus, including ocean governance, which brings to life vital efforts like increasing EU support for fisheries management in Indo-Pacific countries. One such partnership is the EU partnership with WWF Malaysia, which establishes a conservation effort to preserve and maintain ocean habitats such as coral reefs and mangroves, as well as wildlife species. The blue economy is a great component to tackle what damage has been done. It emphasizes a sustainable use of ocean resources for economic and sociological points, while preserving the Earth's ecosystem.
The blue economy concept has emerged decades ago. It refers to the ocean-based economic model, which employs sustainable technologies and infrastructure to secure growth or economic while securing the oceans. It involves all aspects, social, economic, governance, environment. So this blue economy is a good approach to conserve the ocean while not neglecting the community that gain their livelihoods from the oceans. You start with small action, because small is always beautiful. So at your level, you reduce the usage of the water. Secondly, you reduce your kitchen waste or your daily waste, so that it didn't go to the landfill and will pollute the ocean. So if you go to the city or you go to the shopping mall, you reduce the plastic usage. Or if you want to buy food, bring your own food container, so that this plastic will not pollute the ocean. Secondly, you don't do overfishing. For recreational purposes, you should practice catch and release, so that the fish can grow and can breed. And lastly, maybe you can volunteer. That is the least thing you can do, because you say that I don't have anything to contribute. So contribute your energy and your time. You should start to love the oceans. Once you start love the ocean, you will feel responsible for it. So whenever you go to the ocean, or whenever you see what effort has been done to help the ocean, you have to take part. And this must be shared with your family, with your children, so that they can also have the same thinking as yours.
It's easy to think that our vast oceans are infinite, that with so much to give, it would keep on giving forever. But it's up to us to preserve our oceans with our actions and our choices, not just for ourselves, but for our future.
Let us work hand in hand towards the conservation of our oceans for the generations to come. Happy World Oceans Day.